today's lesson that you find you agree with, it's because existentialism is indeed the philosophy of our times. It goes back to a Christian preacher, Soren Kierkegaard, who in the late 19th century reacted against the rationalism, the status quo-ism of the Lutheran Church in particular. He believed that Christians had become too comfortable, that living a, quote, Christian life was basically living life as people were living it. It was very much the conventional, ordinary way. And he believed people had lost the true radical call and response of faith, that a Christian faith will impel you to do things that aren't always rational. He talked about the leap of faith, that really in life, we don't make decisions, we don't orient our life in a very logical, rational way. Rather, we always are taking leaps of faith. When you get married, when you decide what college to go to, yes, you'll analyze data perhaps, and you'll go out and investigate different possibilities, but in the end, it is a question of the heart. It's a question of the spirit. Well, following Soren Kierkegaard were just a flurry of philosophers, often French or German. People like Heidegger, people like Nietzsche, who is associated with the term nihilism, that really there is nothing of inherent value in the world. That's all a question of power. On the French side, you have names like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre. And I'm going to wind up conflating many of their thoughts and beliefs in an effort to keep things simple. But to understand existentialism, you have to first accept their worldview, that essentially life is absurd. There is no inherent meaning in things. There's no call from God. Many of them, most of them actually do not believe in a God. And what we are is what we decide we do with our lives. There really is, again, no essence to us. We are our existence. And we are always radically free to choose whatever life sets before us. But then we have to live with the consequences of those choices. We are radically free, but we are radically, therefore, subject to our choices. Life in itself is absurd. Camus talks about the myth of Sisyphus and how life is rolling a boulder up a hill. And just when you get to the top of the hill, it rolls back down. And this is the way life is. We never quite achieve what the goal we set out for ourselves is. And even if we think we achieve it, it winds up being of no value. Because life is absurd, we feel a certain alienation. We don't feel like we quite fit in. We're sort of a stranger in the universe. Sartre talks about this a lot. We feel estranged from the created order of things. And many of them talk about angst. Angst is often translated as anxiety, and that translation will do. But I want to first of all set up what the difference is between anxiety and fear. Fear has a specific object. You may be afraid you're going to get an F on the next test, and that F will imperil your college choices. You might be afraid of an injury because it would affect your scholarship offers. Fear has a definite object in mind. Anxiety or angst is more diffuse. You can't really say why you're feeling this sense of unease, this sense of being disconnected, of being uncomfortable. But for the existentialist, that is the signal that life is absurd. That deep down we know that none of this really makes sense. None of the universe really makes sense. That all of our constructs of rationality and logic are just that. They're ways of staving off the ultimate, the deep-seated fear that in each of us lives, that this really has no meaning at all. And for existentialists, it's important to pay attention to this feeling of angst, because it is what will impel you to become more responsible, more self-defining, to take ownership of your own existence.